Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic. I recently finished reading one of the most popular science fiction book series in recent times, The Expanse. I started reading the series back in 2012, and from the first book, I was pretty much hooked on the series. At the time, I was reading a lot of the expanded Dune universe books written by Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert. I had finished Sandworms of Dune, which was their 8th book, but by no means their last one. However, at that point, I was burned out on their Dune books and didn't have a lot of interest in where they were taking the story after Sandworms of Dune. So I started looking for a fresh science fiction series to follow and discovered Leviathan Wakes in a science fiction book club catalog. However, I was unable to order it through them as their Canadian operation was going out of business. Finally, finding the softcover edition of Leviathan Wakes at my local bookstore and bought it right away. I loved that first book, and I was hooked, and followed the series right up until the final book, Leviathan Falls, came out a decade later. Now, having read the series in its totality, with the exception of the short stories and novellas, I can now give my overall impression of the series. Overall, I think the Expanse series is a very entertaining and solid series of science fiction books. Obviously, with a series spanning 9 books, some are better than others, but on average, the series is very good. However, should you read The Expanse? If you are an avid reader of books, and of science fiction books in particular, chances are you might be reading or have read this series already. If you haven't, for whatever reason, I'll try to give you my reasons on why you should start, but also some things you might want to consider before you decide to start this series. What is The Expanse? The Expanse is set in a future where humanity has spread out and colonized the solar system. The solar system is divided up into 3 main powers: Earth, that is controlled by the UN; Mars, that is an independent colony from Earth and governed by the Martian Congressional Republic; and finally we have the Belters, who live on asteroids and the outer planets. The Belters have been exploited and taken advantage of for generations by both Earth and Mars. Because of this, the OPA, Outer Planets Alliance, is formed. It is a loose network, sometimes a labor union, advocacy group, and sometimes terrorist group. They are united under the common ideology of fighting for fair rights and interests of the Belt and outer planets. They often come into direct conflict with the inner planets' Earth-Mars Coalition Navy, a joint operation between the navies of both Earth and Mars to police the solar system. It is a future of freedom fighters, powerful governments, and shady self-serving megacorporations. However, quietly and secretly, an astonishing discovery has been made. Soon, it will be known to every human in the solar system, and it will alter the course of human history forever. Published by Orbit Books, it is a saga that spans 10 novels, starting with Leviathan Wakes, then Caliban's War, Abaddon's Gate, Cibola Burn, Nemesis Games, Babylon's Ashes, Persepolis Rising, Tiamat's Wrath, and concluding in Leviathan Falls. The series is then followed up by a 10th book, Memories Legion, which is a collection of 8 short stories and novellas, with the novella The Sins of Our Fathers, which acts as an epilogue to the series. The book excludes one story, however, The Last Flight of the Cassandra, which was an exclusive to the RPG game. The series is written by authors Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham, under the pen name James S.A, which originally started out development by Ty Frank as a setting for a massive multiplayer online role-playing game, and then a tabletop role-playing game. After years of world-building for a role-playing game of some kind, Ty Frank and his wife were at the home of Daniel Abraham and his wife. When Ty began explaining the world he had created for a role-playing game, Daniel, who was already a published author at that point, suggested that the world would make an excellent backdrop for a series of books, and noted, "People who write books don't do this much research." The two then worked together writing the series. That is The Expanse in a nutshell. Influences and themes. If you are a fan of more realistic, grounded science fiction, or hard sci-fi, as it is sometimes called, then this series might appeal to your tastes. Some of the inspirations for the series is the 1977 science fiction novel Gateway and its sequels written by Fred Pohl. It has also been noted that The Expanse has many similarities to the classic 1956 sci-fi novel The Stars, My Destination, written by Alfred Bester, with Ty Frank admitting that the biggest influence on the series has been the 1979 Ridley Scott film Alien. Having read The Stars, My Destination and reviewed it on my channel last year, the parallels between the two are quite obvious, as both involve megacorporations and a humanity that has spread out throughout the solar system but has not yet achieved interstellar travel. Also, having watched the film Alien countless times in my life, the influences are clear between both as well, with a universe inhabited by huge megacorporations that care little about human life, but only its own power. Both have that darker sci-fi theme and more lived-in feel, as both main cast of characters are basically just truckers in space. The future is shown to be much more darker and dystopian in contrast to the future of humanity seen in Star Trek, where almost all social ills of humanity have been conquered, and Earth is now a utopia. One of the themes of The Expanse is that no matter how technologically advanced or how far out in the stars humanity spreads, humanity will always be tribal, hateful, and warring among itself. Also, and when I say this, I'm paraphrasing the authors, is that the universe is hostile, dangerous, and it doesn't care about humanity. Now, that might seem pretty harsh as far as themes go, but another theme of the book is that despite this, humanity will overcome its challenges from within itself and outside of itself. The series also explores social ills such as inequality, oppression, and exploitation of those considered to be of a lower class, as the Belters, who almost exclusively live and work in space and have formed a culture of their own, are taken advantage of and treated unfairly by the inner planets of Earth and Mars. The series also deals with loyalty to friends, family, specific groups, and how this can cause a person to have to make difficult choices, as the politics of this can bring characters into moral conflict with themselves and others. Finally, along with all of that, it's just a fun sci-fi adventure story with interesting characters, mysterious aliens, and cool space battles. Now with that said, here are some things that might be considered cons by some. I'll start by making a comparison between Frank Herbert's Dune and Leviathan Wakes. Dune is the first in a series of 6 books, and more when we count the expanded Dune books by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. However, Dune works perfectly well as a standalone science fiction story, so you can read it and feel like you got a complete story without having to go on. In contrast, when I read Leviathan Wakes, it is clearly the first book in a series. That is how it is written, like the first episode of a TV series. It doesn't really lend itself to be a one and done. So getting into the series is a long-term commitment of 9 or 10 books, with the book with the lowest page count being 528 and the highest being 608. These books are not small, and that might be intimidating to those looking to start the series. I think it is much easier to follow a long series of books like this when you get in on the ground floor, where you are reading each book as they come out, and you're along for the ride right from the start. That is how it was for me when I started the series. At that time, there were only 2 books out, and I had no idea how long the series would be. I would imagine it would have been the same for a fan of the Wheel of Time books, who were there right at the beginning in 1990 and jumped on with The Eye of the World. For me myself, the thought of trying to tackle the Wheel of Time series is intimidating, with 14 books in the series and all of them having high page counts. Another thing is, not all of the Expanse books are equal. Not that any of them are bad, but some are much better than others. For example, I really like the first book in the series, Leviathan Wakes, and it is still my favorite book in the series. Then I went on to read Caliban's War. Didn't really care for that one. I didn't think it was nearly as good as the first book and almost gave up the series. However, I continued on with Abaddon's Gate, and after that 3rd book, I got a better feel for the pace of the series. Then my view of Caliban's war changed retroactively, as I started viewing the series as a whole. Also, in my opinion, I found that The Expanse is designed like a trilogy of trilogies, and if you hate or dislike the first 3 books, then I don't think you'd like the rest. And likewise, if you really hate the first book, then maybe decide to walk off the boat right there. However, if you love that first book and end up liking the first 3 books, I think it's safe to say that you will love the rest of the series as well. Now, if none of that turns you off from reading the series, then I think you will be in for a fun time. The Expanse is a great space opera, a vast saga, a great science fiction story that has mystery, political intrigue, great characters, and awesome action. So I hope this video will help you decide whether you want to take on a series like this. It may be long, but it is worth it in my opinion. And that's everything I have to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.